Alright, playing Pauper, match 1 with Orzhov Extortion. We're on the play. We have 3 lands. We have a Mimic, a Thrall, an Edge, and a Journey. That sounds great. Get to lead on a tap land turn 1. Probably Mimic turn 2. Trigger Mimic the following turn. Yeah, this is going to be good. Delver of Secrets, okay. So we could journey that right now. They probably are going to have counter magic of some kind, and we don't want to take 3 a turn for forever if they just blind flip the Delver. Or I can be a little greedier and I could play Mimic first, and then next turn I could go Journey plus Edge of the Divinity, which could be fun. I think I'm going to take that greedy play. And they do blind flip their Delver with a mental note. So this is potentially blue-black Delver, or Angler Delver, as it's called, instead of mono-blue Delver. They're going to Thought Scour themselves, which means they still have the mental note in hand. And they'll pass. Alright, this is perfect for us, because we're going to get to resolve this Journey while they're tapped out, and also play an Edge. Alternatively, we could let them have the Delver for a few turns, and that would mean we would play a Mimic and an Edge of the Divinity this turn. I actually like the sound of that even more. Since this is Angler Delver, we actually care a lot more about Gurmag Angler than we do the Insectile Aberration. If this was Mono Blue Delver, then the 3/2 flyer would be basically the biggest thing we have to fear until the Spire Golem comes down. But it's not, so let's do this. Always yield to our other Night Sky Mimic. And now we get to bash for 7 on turn 3. And next turn we're going to be able to trigger both of those again and come over for 11 points of damage. And if we can do that with an Edge of the Divinity, we just kill our opponent. Assuming they don't block or remove anything, which is a big assumption, but it's cool to see that we could do that on turn 4. They play the mental note that we know that they had. Let's go ahead and see their graveyard, shall we? Sacrifice the Revolving Wilds main phase. That means they're probably going to play an Angler here. And if they attack with Insectile Aberration, we have a chance of just winning if we draw Edge of the Divinity off the top. Alright, there's the Angler that we were expecting. Alright, and they are attacking, so 1 Edge of the Divinity means we win the game, since we'll have a 7/7 flyer and another 7/7 flyer. Okay, Night Sky Mimic. So here I could deploy another creature, I could Journey, but I'm going to use my 3 mana spell to be the most mana efficient possible, and also to start putting a clock on them of the Pillory of the Sleepless. Because now, in addition to removing our creatures, they need to be able to get their Gurmag Angler off the table so they stop taking damage from the Pillory. So that's down to 3, Pillory drains them for 1, and now they have to kill our creatures and remove the Pillory somehow. Preordain goes top and bottom, so they found something that they want. Ponder does not shuffle, so they have to have found something pretty good here. Thought Scour. If they're just going to play another Angler, that is not going to be good enough for them, since 1 multicolored trigger means that we get in with lethal. Okay, and they concede. Alright, so sideboarding against them, we do not want Choking Sands, that's for sure. Definitely don't want Dust to Dust. Holy Light is too unlikely to hit a Delver, so I'm going to get rid of that. Which leaves us no Circle of Protection for sure. Which leaves these 6 choices. Bojuka Bog is the obvious choice since they're using their graveyard. But as you can see, it's very easy for them to refill it. A Thought Scour or a Mental Note puts 3 cards, the 2 it mills and itself, into the yard. And if they just do that and then play Angler in the same turn, we never get an opportunity to Bojuka. Castigate can be good against a deck running counterspells. Additionally, if we just take their only Angler out of their hand, then that makes all their milling themselves a lot worse. Undying Evil is probably good against their type of removal. Lone Missionary doesn't match up against Angler very well. This isn't exactly an aggro on aggro matchup. They're more of a tempo deck, so I don't think we want the Missionary. I think I will take out the Mimic since it matches up so badly against the 3/2 flyer, since it's a 1/1 flyer. I'll take out 2 of these and probably 2 Edge of the Divinity, just because they do have enough removal that it could punish us. And I'll bring in the Undying Evil, the extra Castigate, and the 2 Bojuka Bogs. And we'll submit this. Alright, so we are on the draw, and our hand is very good. We get to go turn 2 Tithe Drinker, turn 3 Castigate with Extort, turn 4 another Castigate with Extort. And if our opponent can get down a very quick Gurmag Angler, it might be too slow to castigate them on our 3rd turn if they can play an Angler by their own 3rd turn. But if they cannot do that, then this will be a really great play, since all 3 of those spells will be a must counter spell most likely. Additionally, if we're really afraid of our opponent going turn 3 Angler, we can castigate them on turn 2. But then that's not letting us get a Tithe Drinker down first. No Extort triggers, no attacking, so I don't want to do that. Alright, our opponent is just passing with mana up. And we draw a Gwendolyn. So the question is, they very likely have Counterspell here, or Deprive. Which one would we rather they counter, our Tithe Drinker or a Castigate? And I think the answer has got to be Castigate. That's basically why they're in the deck against Counterspell decks, is to draw counter magic and to force them to use it on that instead of other things. And then in the case that they don't have one, or all they have is like a Deprive and they don't want to have to pick up an island yet, then we get to see what's going on in their hand. Alright, so they're going to Brainstorm in response. They already used up 1, but now they get to do it again and hide a card. Or hide 2 cards from the Castigate, rather. Which is a cool trick you can do with Brainstorm. The problem is for them, if they also have a Thought Scour or a Mental Note in hand, now they can't mill those 2 things off the top if they were important things. Alright, so here we see a Ghastly Demise, which isn't going to do anything to us because it destroys a non-black creature. And all of our creatures are black. Our opponent doesn't realize this yet, which is a benefit of playing an unknown deck. We need to think about what they hid with the Brainstorm. They have no black sources in hand, and no way to get black sources in hand. So most likely they put junk on top of their deck and are planning on milling it off with a Thought Scour or a Mental Note here to try to dig for a black source. Additionally, they could have hid their black source, so we didn't think that the Gurmag Angler was very good. But that's really the only action card in their hand, which is what we're going to take. Alright, and I think that they're going to Mental Note or Thought Scour on end step, and it looks like, yeah, they are going to do that. So let's see what they take off. A Think Twice and a Chainer's Edict. So yeah, they're digging for black mana right now. Or mana of any kind, really, but especially black. We do need to remember that that Chainer Edict and the Think Twice is in the yard. They Mental Note, main phase, trying to hit a land. Flipping an Evolving Wilds and a Scavenger. Do it again, still digging for land. Hitting another one of their Evolving Wilds. Okay, and they missed their land drop. So now the only things that we know that they have in hand are a Disfigure, a Ghastly, and no land. So 4 non-land cards. So here we have the best turn that we will probably ever have in the history of turns in playing Pauper, because we get to resolve our Extort creature and nuke their graveyard. So now even if they find black's source, they can't play Anglers or Scavengers for a long time, which is pretty great for us. 11 cards at once with the Bojuka Bog. Normally most Angler Delver players would not do that, would not put all those cards in their graveyard without being able to immediately use them, but our opponent was kind of forced to find a land. Alright, main phase Mental Note again, flipping an Angler and a Thought Scour. They finally find their black source. So here we have some choices. We can resolve a Blind Hunter while they're tapped out, because it's a pretty good card. We could Castigate and Extort and then play a Nip Gwendolyn. Those are basically the only 2 options. Play 2 spells and Extort, or play 1 spell. I think, as odd as it is, and even knowing that our opponent has the Disfigure in hand to kill one of our creatures, I think I really want to resolve this Blind Hunter. I think it just makes more sense to me to get this threat down first so we can start attacking for more. And then castigate next turn when we have more options available. As it is right now, if they have multiple spells that are black in hand, then castigating one of them doesn't really do anything since they can only cast one per turn cycle anyway, since they only have one black source. So I'd rather them make the first move before we cast the second castigate. And now if they want to disfigure on our turn instead of theirs, that means they're going to have to take damage from the Extort trigger. So let's start off with the Nip Gwendolyn. Try to bait out a counter spell. I also am going to play the Extort now, in case they decide to counter this or something, or kill the Tithe Drinker before Nip Gwendolyn resolves, and then we wouldn't get to Extort with the Castigate. Alright, that resolves, so they did not take the bait. I'll attack first, see if they want to disfigure, or tap out of any type of mana before I attack. Alright, there's the disfigure. And I accidentally double clicked, so I didn't get to attack for 2 there. Hopefully that doesn't end up being relevant. And now they have to counterspell this if they can, probably. Okay, and they do, to protect their hand. It would be nice if they were at 14, but unfortunately they are still at 16 since we misclicked. And now we have a little bit of a threat and some removal spells for the anglers that are now eventually going to come down. Stormbound Geist, okay. We have 2 very good answers to that. I'm not going to use an Undying Evil just yet. I would rather wait. If our opponent has any way to bounce stuff back to their hand, then the Pillory gets worse, but I do not believe that they do. So I think I would rather Pillory the Stormbound Geist than unmake it, so we can go ahead and start that clock. I suppose they could Chainer's Edict themselves to get a 3/3 flyer if they really wanted it, but then they're not Chainer's Edicting us, so I think I'm okay with that. Alright, they're going to disfigure that. I'm going to attempt to Undying Evil it. I'm not really sure how this works with Haunt, though. I probably should have thought about that before I put Undying Evil in my sideboard. When it dies with Haunt, I believe I can exile it, targeting a creature, and have it haunt it. I need to look up whether Haunt is mandatory or not, though, because if it's mandatory, then Undying won't work. Okay, so I just looked it up, and apparently they're both triggered abilities, so I can choose the order in which they go on the stack. So I can make the Undying trigger instead of the Haunt, apparently. So let's see if I can do that correctly. Alright, so what I want to do is I want to put the Haunt trigger onto the stack first, so it resolves last. So I'll Haunt the Nip Gwendolyn, but the Undying will resolve first, so I'll get a 3/3 flyer instead of haunting the Nip Gwendolyn. And I get the trigger again because it's coming back into play, and then this should do nothing. Okay, good. Opponent passes a turn. We have a Tithe Drinker. We'll attack for 4. And we can go ahead and play this Tithe Drinker. It resolves, and we get to pass with an Unmake Up. They cast a Think Twice. They're at virtual 3 life right now if we hadn't misclicked through an attack, but I think we've got them either way. Okay, Delver's Secrets resolves. Angler resolves. And here I'm going to wait, and I'm going to unmake on my turn so that I can extort as well, because that plus the 3 damage from the Blind Hunter plus the 1 damage from Pillory, which will be enough to kill them. And I can even castigate first. Well, I can't do that and extort, so which do I want to do? I suppose I will attack first, because even if I unmake the Gurmag Angler, I still wouldn't attack with the Gwendolyn plus the Tithe Drinker. Ghastly Demise, their own Stormbound Geist. Okay. So they're going to get a 3/3 flyer. Alright, so we'll just go ahead and unmake that. And Extort. And we'll save the Castigate for next turn if we need it somehow. Yes, please. They're not just dead, though, because the Pillory trigger will no longer resolve, so they're going to 1. And that would be game over, if not for the misclick I keep on mentioning, but alright, so they're at 1. We have 3 attackers there, 2 blockers. They're going to have to remove a creature or play another. They reveal Counterspell to the Insectile Aberration. Alright, and they concede. So we take down match 1, despite a misclick, and we are on to match 2.